Good evening. I am so sorry to disrupt the conversations, the buzzing conversations happening, but we would like to start. We've got quite a number of online attendees waiting for us, so if we could all just find a seat, then we can start with our program. Good evening and welcome on behalf of Stellenbosch University and the Center for Student Life and Learning at our annual Frederik Slabbert Honorary Lecture. And this year also the gala event for the 6th South Africa-Japan University Forum. I'm Heidi October. I'm the Deputy Director for Leadership at the Center for Student Life and Learning and also the head of the Frederik Slabbert Institute. As always, and I always start with this sentence, the annual FVZS Honorary Lecture provides a platform for engaging conversations on South African democracy, citizenship, social justice, and human rights matters. And tonight, the 12th Honorary Lecture expands this platform to include a global focus. So tonight will be no exception, with student leaders, alumni, scholars, media, and members of the public joining us from across South Africa and again from various countries. We are further pleased to announce that this year's Honorary Lecture forms part of the first international youth think tank in collaboration with the Norwegian Nobel Institute, the international youth think tank hosted at Stiers. But it's August. We're also celebrating Women's Month, and I'd like to extend an extra warm welcome to all our female guests, Womenex, and speakers. And on that note, it gives me real great pleasure to hand over to my fellow program director, FVZS Institute alumna, former student leader at Stellenbosch, legal practitioner in the pro bono and human rights field, and also an A. Bailey Fellow, Ms. Lisa Marie de Vel. Over to you, Lisa.
Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all our esteemed guests. It's wonderful for me to be back at my alma mater, once again working alongside Heidi October and the Frederik Slabbert Institute. The Institute was instrumental in shaping the person that I am and also for pushing me to pursue the human rights law career that I now really proudly have. I will keep my part short, as you are not here to see me this evening, but our esteemed speakers and our wonderful guests. It's my honor to welcome Stellenbosch University's Rector and Vice Chancellor, Prof. Wim de Villiers, to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. A very warm welcome. It is cold outside, but a very warm welcome here to Stellenbosch University and to this very significant occasion. And we've got it all laid on for you tonight. Lots of things happening, so I really look forward to participating in it all. It's an honor to gather here as we reflect on the profound legacy of Dr. Frederik Slabbert, a towering figure in South Africa's history whose commitment to democracy, social justice, and engaged citizenship continues to inspire. At the outset, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our very distinguished guests whose participation underscores the importance of this event in our national discourse. Firstly, a special welcome to Ms. Tawakkol Karman, Nobel Peace Laureate. We are so privileged to have her here to deliver this year's lecture. Her work and advocacy resonate deeply with the themes of youth activism and leadership, which are so central to our discussions today. And thank you also to our local respondent, Professor Cheryl Hendricks. I'd also like to extend a welcome to our partners, the South Africa-Japan University Forum attendees, the International Youth Think Tank, the Norwegian Nobel Institute, the Abe Bailey Trust, all national and international higher education partners, and all the friends of the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Institute, which includes staff, students, alumni, parents, and members of the public. So this evening's lecture is of particular importance, as it coincides with a pivotal moment in South Africa's democratic journey. As we reflect on 30 years of democracy, we are reminded of the vision and courage that leaders like Dr. van Zyl Slabbert embodied. His unwavering belief in the power of democratic processes and his commitment to fostering dialogue across divides laid the foundation for the South Africa we live in today. It is fitting, therefore, that this lecture not only honors his memory, but also serves as a platform for critical engagement with the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. The theme of tonight's lecture, reflecting on 30 years of democracy in South Africa, how can African youth demonstrate citizen leadership through constitutionalism, could not be more timely. Our continent's youth are the vanguard of tomorrow's leadership, and it is through platforms like this that we can explore and encourage their active participation in shaping a democratic and prosperous future for all. Stellenbosch University, through the work of the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Institute, is deeply committed to fostering the attributes of engaged citizenship within our student body. Our goal is to equip young leaders with the tools, knowledge, and ethical foundation needed to activate their agency in meaningful ways. This commitment aligns with our broader mission to contribute to the development of a just and equitable society, both nationally and internationally. So as we gather tonight, we're also mindful of the broader relevance of this lecture within the South African context. The recent national elections have brought to the fore critical questions about the state of our democracy, the role of our institutions, and the responsibility of our citizens. The resulting government of national unity is a continuation of the South African democratic experiment, and it will continue to evolve. And it is against this backdrop that we consider the legacy of Dr. van Zyl Slabbert and the continuing relevance of his work. In closing, let us remember that the essence of this lecture series is not only to honor a great South African, but also to challenge ourselves to live up to the ideals he espoused. As we engage in tonight's discussions, may we do so with a spirit of openness, reflection, and a shared commitment to the betterment of our society. Thank you, and once again, welcome to Stellenbosch University.
Thank you very much, Prof. de Villiers. Thank you for your insight, for your wise words, and thank you for reminding us as well that Stellenbosch is a place that fosters that critical engagement within students, that fosters that leadership abilities, and something that we carry with us as we go forward into our lives. I also want to remind everyone, as you go out this evening, please have a look at the van Zyl Slabbert collection that is outside at the moment to learn a bit more about Dr. van Zyl's life, about his legacy. You'll find manuscripts, books, all from his personal life and from his political life. Next, I would like to welcome to the stage Stellenbosch University's Vice Chancellor for Learning and Teaching, Prof. Daresh Ramjagannath.
Good evening, distinguished guests, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to provide some background and context to the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Annual Lecture. This event is hosted by Stellenbosch University to honor the late Dr. Slabbert's legacy and to create a platform to engage critically with South African political and governance issues. And you heard a bit earlier that this time we're going to have a little focus globally as well. Dr. van Zyl Slabbert's reputation as an agent of change in the recent history of South Africa is renowned. His engagement with social issues and the promotion of a concept of democracy through the course of his career is testimony of his service to South African society. Dr. Frederik van Zyl Slabbert was known for his unwavering commitment to democracy and social justice. As a politician, as an academic, and even as a businessman, his legacy is defined by his courageous opposition to apartheid and his vision for a democratic South Africa. He advocated for peaceful negotiation and reconciliation. In addition to his political achievements, Dr. Slabbert made significant contributions to academia and civil society. His work emphasized the importance of dialogue and inclusivity in building a fair and just society. This ethos continues through the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Institute for Student Leadership Development at Stellenbosch University and was established to honor his legacy. The Institute aims to cultivate future leaders who embody Dr. Slabbert's values of ethical leadership, critical thinking, and social responsibility. By providing students with opportunities for leadership training, community engagement, and academic excellence, the Institute ensures that Slabbert's vision for a more equitable South Africa lives on. Now, as has been mentioned, this will be the 12th annual lecture since the official launch of the Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Institute in March of 2011. We were interrupted in 2020 with COVID, but our previous speakers have included Ms. Sakani Maluleke, the South African Auditor General, Advocate Shamila Batoy, the head of our National Prosecuting Authority, Judge Dennis Davis, a former Constitutional Court judge, Ms. Marianne Tam, assistant editor of the Daily Maverick and a top-selling author and commentator at large, Ms. Wendy Luhabe, a social entrepreneur and human capital developer, Ms. Judith February, a governance specialist and columnist, Dr. Eindhoven, executive chairman of private investment group Yellowwood. And in 2015, we had Mr. Isaac Shongwe, the non-executive director of Barlow World Logistics. And prior to that, Mr. Jay Naidu, chairperson of the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, and who was also a former minister in the cabinet of the late President Nelson Mandela. In 2013, we had Ms. Mariah Ramos, the former APSA Group Executive Head and Executive Head of Barclays Africa. And our first lecture was given by Mr. Harold Pakendorf, the political analyst and friend of Dr. van Zyl Slabbert. Now, we are indeed honored to this year have a Nobel Peace Laureate give our lecture. And Ms. Tawakkol Karman was the Nobel Peace Laureate in 2011. And we were also hoping to have the lecture co-presented by a Kofi Annan NextGen Democracy Prize recipient, Ms. Namatai Kwekweza, who was the winner of the 2023 Kofi Annan NextGen Democracy Prize, and who's also a constitutionalism advocate, but unfortunately there were some challenges in that regard. Stellenbosch University is committed to ensuring that our students have a transformative experience in higher education, developing them not just academically in their chosen disciplinary fields, but also molding them into well-rounded individuals that are critical citizens and go into society with the skills, the competencies, and the attributes that would enable them to make a positive impact on society. We are therefore especially proud to be associated with Dr. van Slabbert's name through this annual lecture, as well as the Frederik van Slabbert Institute and the work that it does to realize our vision as an institution. So thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to the lecture by our distinguished speaker on how we can advance society as per the spirit and the legacy of the late Dr. Frederik van Slabbert. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. from Jagannath, for the contextualization and for always your continued support to our students at large, and particularly our student leaders through the work of the FVZS Institute. As indicated on the program, we have 2 honorary lecture speakers. It is, however, with a heavy heart that I have to announce that Ms. Namatai Kwekweza, 2023 Kofi Annan NextGen Democracy Prize winner, will unfortunately not be able to join us tonight. Following the news over the last 2-3 weeks, you might have noticed that she and 17 other youth activists have been detained in a prison in Zimbabwe, and that is where she is right now. It's deliberate that we left her seat on this stage tonight, and that we're sharing a bookmark with one of her quotes, as a reflection for all of us, and in particular, our youth leaders, that sometimes democracy might come at a price. Our thoughts are with her, and we will remain in contact with the organization that she founded at the age of 18, the We Lead Trust, to offer our support, together with many other human rights lawyers worldwide. This brings me to the highlight of this evening, the introduction of Ms. Tawakkol Karman, Yemeni journalist, human rights activist, and the first Arab woman to become a Nobel Peace Laureate in 2011. Ms. Karman came forward as a courageous leadership figure during the Arab Spring in 2011. She was praised for her efforts against tyranny in the Arab world and for promoting reconciliation between Shia and Sunni Muslims, countering terrorism and fostering dialogue between Islam and other religions. Ms. Karman's extensive influence is recognized globally. Time magazine listed her as one of the most influential women of the past century, featuring her on the cover of the 100 Strong Women in the World issue as a torchbearer of the Arab Spring. She's also recognized by Foreign Policy magazine as one of the top 100 global thinkers and named among the most powerful women by many international media outlets and organizations such as CNN, the BBC, and Reporters Without Borders. The former UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, appointed her to the high-level panel of eminent persons on the post-2015 development agenda. She serves on the boards of several key international institutions and organizations, including the Nobel Women's Initiative. Her Tawakkol Karman Foundation plays an important role in development by building schools, fighting poverty, and supporting health institutions in Yemen. I now welcome Ms. Tawakkol Karman to present the 12th Frederik van Slabbert Honorary Lecture. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, dear. Thank you, thank you. Hi. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Peace be upon all of you. Koi a nat molo. Did I molo? Molo. Okay, good night. Let me give my husband this telephone because it's bothering me with my great husband. Okay, I'm so happy to be here again in South Africa. As I said yesterday, and I always say that I consider this my country, my second country, even before I visited it, because I felt in every suffer of people here, and I read about your suffering before, and my hero was and is still Nelson Mandela. So I remember when I started my journey on peaceful struggle and peaceful resistance, I put his photo in my room, in my office, with Mahatma Gandhi and with Martin Luther King. And also, I'm so proud that also in this country, our Bishop Desmond Tutu, also one of the most important also people that inspire me how to speak, how to fight for freedom, and how to act peacefully. So thank you, Southern African, for give all the human beings this a very big, great gift. So when I got the invitation to talk about reflecting on 30 years of democracy in South Africa, how can African youth demonstrate citizen leadership through constitution? I said, yes, I like this topic. I really like it very much. Why? Because that is exactly what I did during my journey on fighting for human rights. This is exactly what I did when I decided to be a human rights activist, when I decided to be a good citizen for my country, when I decided to be a good journalist. So the first thing that I was looking for, what is the things that I can take and make it as my reference during my vision, during my work to achieve the dream of my people and my dream for freedom, justice, democracy, and rule of law. And I saw our constitution, the Yemen constitution. So Yemen constitution, regardless all the shortages inside it, but because it was written as a result of the unification between North and South, North Yemen and South Yemen, the founders of this constitution wrote a very important things, very important rights. So this is that the Yemeni constitution was a result of a great unification between North and South Yemen. And one of the best things that Yemen constitution included was the rights, the most important rights, expression rights, the right of assembly, and this is the most important thing for every citizen. Expression right and right of assembly, because through these two rights, you can practice other rights. If those two rights was taken from any citizens, directly other rights will be also taken as a result. We didn't have other rights in my country, but with that important two rights, I said, okay, I had these important rights in the constitution, so I can practice them. Regardless if the government accept or if the government didn't accept. I'm using my right, my constitution right, So because of that, I started my journey as a journalist with a very, very strong articles against the dictator. And when anyone tried to blame me, no, I'm using my constitutional rights. Because of that, I established my organization called Women Journalists Without Borders at that time. And by the way, I was young, like most of you. And I'm still young now. So, when I started my organization, Women Journalists Without Borders, the authoritarian government, the president himself, the dictator himself, was very afraid and very upset. He said, wow, she's making a lot of trouble while she is just a journalist. What about now if she is planning and establishing an international organization called Women Journalists Without Borders? We took our license at that time, but when they realized, they took the government, closed the organization and took the license. But I said, and they told me, if you want to establish organization, make another organization, not this organization. Not for women, not for journalists, and not without borders. Okay, and please come to us. And they called me, by the way, by the national security. And come, we can help you to establish this new organization, and we can even finance you. And we will give you a new license. I tell them, no. I don't need you. I don't need your license. And whether you give me the license or you don't give me the license, I'm practicing my constitutional right. So I established a new organization called Women Journalists Without Chains. And when we talk about freedom of expression, we talk about freedom to speak, to write, to print, to own your media outlets, and also to practice demonstration, sit-ins, movements. And I practiced this also, demonstrations and sit-ins. And they told me, please, you have just take the license like what the law said. This law said that you have to take permission from the government, from the security, to make sit-ins and or demonstrations. I told them, am I crazy to take your permission? First, you will not give me this permission. Second, you will let me help you in limiting my rights, my constitutional rights. The constitutional rights told me that I have just to tell you, not to take the permission. Just to send you that we are going to this place or that place for this sit-in, or for this demonstration, so you can do your work and your duty on preserving and providing security for the demonstrators. So I will not ask permission from you. And I will not do the same thing that political parties are doing, because most of the political parties is supporting you in indirectly way, even they are opposition, because they are accepting this kind of putting limitation on the Constitution. Then I made a lot of sit-ins, demonstrations every Tuesday in front of the cabinet, every Tuesday. Since 2006 until 2011, when we announced the peaceful revolution in Yemen. So before the peaceful revolution, I practiced my constitutional rights and convinced Yemeni people that this is the only way to fight, to struggle for the human rights and for the any demands, legal demands that you want to. Yes, we are belonging to an armed society, own more than 70 million pieces of weapons, but we can't do it. It is not depending on weapons or in arms or in violence is the only solution to take your rights or to ask for your demands. There is another way. There is another way. Peaceful movement. Raise your voice. Go to the streets with flowers. Don't accept violence. And teach the people how to use non-violence by practicing demonstration and sitting. That was very, very, very hard in the beginning. Very hard. I was the only one. Literally. I always the only crazy. Because the dictator, he called me, she's a crazy woman. Don't believe this crazy woman. She's just a woman. The society follow her, but they don't accept the rule of women. In general, what about a crazy woman going to the street, calling people to be against me? This is what I exactly did. Went to the street, called Yemeni people to go to the street with me and to raise their voices and to save Yemen. I went to these Sana'a universities many times in front of the gate of the students. I told them, wake up, wake up, wake up, students. We have to save Yemen. We have to save Yemen. With a little microphone, they use it in Yemen just for selling tomato and potato. I was alone. Then millions of Yemeni people, women and men, followed my call for justice, freedom, equality, and democracy. Millions of them became leaders more than me. I just started the beginning of calling for freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, freedom of press, freedom of democratic rights, freedom of every people to access to the all basic rights like health, like education, fighting terrorism and fighting corruption. And the only weapons was me was, it was my pen and my microphone. Again, what did I do? I demonstrate citizen leadership through the Constitution. And this is what I'm calling you here, young men and women, and every citizen here, to practice your citizen leadership through your great, great Constitution. This is the Constitution. The Southern African Constitution. This is 25, the version, the your 25th anniversary. Now you are celebrating the 30th anniversary, and congratulations for South Africa for this great anniversary. And this is the best constitution in the world. You have to take care about it. When I practiced my citizen leadership through my constitution, I had some few articles that I was relying on. While all other articles was the dictator himself replaced them to be in his favor, to preserve him in the authority, and to deny any accountability against him. So just few very important articles I was relying on and depend on it through my constitution. What about you? You have a very important, a very great constitution made by the blood of your fathers, mothers, grandfathers, and grandmothers. This constitution, you should protect it. You should defend on it. You shouldn't feed up on it. You should care the hope that this constitution should be implemented every day, every minute, every second. This is your fight. So don't say that, no, what this constitution gave us, what democracy gave us. No. No, it is not the fault of democracy. It is not the fault of constitution. It is the fault that when they practiced half democracy and when they don't implement your great constitution. So this is the problem. So when I hear to some youth, oh my God, and unfortunately some, they spread the hopeless emotions. No! You betray the blood of your grandfathers, grandmothers, your fathers, your mothers, and you yourself, and also your children and all the generation. When you experience any sense of regret or of doubt on your democracy or on your constitution. The only mission that you have to do, every people here, and especially the youth, that you have to protect South Africans' democracy. And you have to protect your constitution. And you have to be, as you inspire the people around the world with the non-violent movement, you have to inspire people also. How you defend on your constitution and how to transfer it from texts to be something real. Something real from your government and from all the authority sections and from the citizens themselves. So work for the implementation of your constitutions. And don't let any legislator level or legislation level to make any or to write any rules that limit this constitution. And this is what happened in our countries. We have great constitutions, but the laws came against the constitution. So no. You have to be careful and to be aware about that. So observe your parliament, your legislative bodies, and prevent them on doing anything that limits your rights. So why your constitution is great? You have the most important, clear, and details of bills of rights that guarantee the economic, social, political, cultural rights. You have a very clear articles that guarantee the equality and prevent any kind of discrimination between people based on race, on ethnic, on color, on social position, on etc., etc. You have a clear article that guarantees the separation of the judicial system, and this is very important. So you have many things, and you have a clear articles, and this is very important, and this is one of the things that I struggled a lot for, and I'm struggling a lot for now, which is accountability. People who are in the power, they have to be held accountable by the people. Yes. Yes. So the accountability that is inside this constitution is something noticed. So from your president to your minister to all the high official people, you can hold them accountable through the parliament, through the judiciary system, through many tools. No one has immunity. You have a very good and strong legislations, which is this constitution. So again, do you hold them accountable? This is a very important question. Do you have any shortage in the constitution? No. Do you practice your rights to hold them accountable? Why there are a lot of corruption here in South Africa? Because you don't practice your constitution very well. So, again, for the young people, you have a very strong basement to defend on Africa, on South Africa in particular, and to defend on your constitution. And you have a lot of tools, and you have a lot of challenges, One of the challenges that you have, as I said, there is a gap between the implementation and the rights that you have in the constitution. So you have to do something to make this country great because it deserves it. There is another thing, which is the gap between the rich and poor. Not just in Africa, in South Africa, and everywhere. Everywhere in the planet. But here is more than any other place. This is what globalization came and gave us, unfortunately. While I support it, but the globalization gave us the big gap between rich and poor countries and people. And we have to do something to narrow this gap between rich and poor countries. And as I always call for, that those rich countries has to be forced with a binding mechanism through the UN or any other international body for a certain great percentage from their national income to the poor countries for development, for fighting poverty, for fighting climate change, for everything. But there is no, unfortunately, this binding mechanism, international binding mechanism, especially that with UN, they don't have that binding power. But here in Africa also, you have to narrow this very big gap between rich and poor people through any good mechanisms that this mechanism should ensure the safety of the country and the stability of this country, and it may include the tax, a good tax for those people, or any implementation that will lead to redistribution the wealth, to guarantee the social justice, access to all the services, especially the education and health. So, you have a very big victory in your history and in your current, but you have challenges. And who is the one who can do it? Who? Who? I want to see who. You should say, I am. You should say, I am. Feeling responsible for solving the problems around you is the key solution for all the problems in your society. Do you think that you are weak? That you don't have ability to do that? You're wrong. You're wrong, especially the youth, especially the young people. You have every potential to make change in South Africa, in all around the world. You have it. You have to thank God, to thank everything around you if you are not believers. You have to thank the opportunities that you have, that we have now, under the rapid revolution of technology. You have social media, you have platforms, you have constitution. So you have it. So don't say that I can't do it. You can do it. I am a woman from a conservative city in Yemen. I started my journey alone. People was laughing at me and they think she's crazy. But I did it. And I'm still believing that I can do it. You know, after great peaceful revolution, when they took me to the prison and then released me, one of my friends, he's an European, he came to me and told me, he visited my organization and told me, Tawakkol, please, stop. You are alone. Don't do it. They will arrest you again. Yemeni people will not believe you, will not follow you. They are poor country. It's a poor country, and people in Yemen, they want just to eat. You will alone. You will die alone. You will die alone. I told him, Mark, listen. I see it. Believe me, I saw it. That I will lead the street in Yemen, women and men, to be in one chant against the dictator Ali Saleh. And when I go to the street and the revolution people, my voice reached to millions of Yemeni people, went to the street. We went to the tent. I sat in the tent 9 months. From February until his resignation in 11 November. Before that, I went to receive Nobel Peace Prize when they announced my winning. The dictator resigned in November 2011. Because not just believing on myself, not just believing on my leadership, because I also believed on Yemeni people. So don't underestimate your people. Don't say they don't understand, they are poor, they don't know anything. Oh my God, I am alone. No, you are not alone. But your voice didn't reach to them well. You are not alone. Convince them on their cause. Convince them on their purpose in the life. All Yemeni people went to the street with one chant to force the dictator to resign, and he resigned with, we didn't imagine, we have 70 million pieces of weapons. We didn't use one bullet against the dictator. He resigned because of our singing, chanting, flower, and dying in front of all his violence. And after he resigned, the first mission we did is writing a new constitution. A new constitution that we were discussing the South Africa constitution. We were discussing this constitution as a model that we want to follow. And we did a great victory on that thing. We did a great transition period regardless of all the mistakes that happened or the shortages that happened. But we did that, and we wrote a great draft of a constitution. But what happened? What happened? Because those who are afraid from the constitution, from the strong protector of the society, this is the protector of the people. Those who are afraid from the strong, creating a strong protector of the people, they made a coup. They made a coup because they don't want us. It was just days. We will take that draft of constitution to the referendum. But they want to try to stop this very important step. And Houthi militia, who is a racist militia, they were and they still afraid from this constitution. They waged the coup, military coup. And when I read how South Africa suffered from discrimination, from discrimination, we now in Yemen suffer from this kind of discrimination because of the Houthi militia. They are racist. They want and they are still practicing the rule of racism, dividing the country based on racism in the territory that they control. We are still in the struggle for our freedom, justice, democracy. We win in the battle against the dictator. Now we have another battle against the racist group. And we have another battle against the kind of occupation from Saudi and Emirates. And this is another challenge that face all the people who really struggle and dream for freedom and justice. It didn't come easy. Didn't come easy. So with our great revolution, it's now followed by the counter-revolution led by Saudi, Emirates, and Iran. Those three countries doesn't want democracy in Arab region. Doesn't want democracy. So democracy is the monster in front of all those authoritarian regimes. As I said yesterday, that democracy is the solution. It is the solution for freedom, it's the solution for wars, for conflicts, for injustice. So we have to work very hard for this democracy. And another thing that we face as a challenge is the conspiracy from those outsiders. Western countries, from one hand, authoritarian countries from other, Western democratic countries from one hand, and authoritarian countries from one hand. Western democratic countries that they said they are the one who will protect democracy, they are the one who participate directly or indirectly with the dictators in our region. And the same thing that you are facing here in Africa. And one of the challenges that you are now facing the legacy of the colonial power, who protected those dictators. But again, and as I said yesterday, and I will repeat it today, so democracy doesn't have any clash with sovereignty. Democracy and sovereignty are two phases of one coin. So any one of these military coup leaders want to convince you that we make this coup against that regime or that because we want sovereignty. No. Tell them you are liar. Because you are not the solution. The solution should be based by you. You have to protect your democracy because there is no democracy under any rule of the military coup. And this is what we are facing now in our countries, by the way. We have a same experience in Egypt, for example. In Sudan, that now is facing civil war because of the military coup that make the conspiracy against the youth revolution. In Tunis, that there has constitutional coup against the will of people. So you have to fight to defend for your democracy. You are the solution, not the military coup, not China, not Russia, not that what the Democrat Western countries that they said they will give you the democracy while they supported the dictators and helped them, to steal your wealth. You have to make a good partnership with every country that really will serve with you the interests of your country. A partnership, not any kind of a new kind of slavery. Finally, here, with a great pride and great thanks to the South Africa as a country, as a people, as a government, as media, as organization, as everything in South Africa. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for supporting Palestinian cause. You did a great work when you have taken that bold step to trial or to persecute Israel from their crimes against Palestinian people. So that is very important. That is something really admirable for many things. For me, I was expecting this step from those countries who claimed that they are Democrat and they support democracy. But when it came from South Africa that suffered from many problems, that is really the real meaning of brave. This is the real meaning of solidarity. This is the real meaning of feeling to your other people, compassion. So I encourage you, I argue to be proud of this thing. Even, regardless you are from the ruling party or the opposition party, no, this is something you have to be so proud. And you, the generation that live now, you have to make your head high. Raise your head. Say, we belong to that generation that persecute Israel for their committing genocide against Palestinian people. You have to be proud. You have to be proud. And don't afraid, and continue this method. Continue this method. Now a lot of countries follow you. So continue this method. Injustice will not continue. The future of this world is with the justice, with freedom, with democracy. And believe me, as long as there is injustice, there is discrimination, there is tyranny, there is oppression, there will be great people, brave people who will stand in front of this and who will sacrifice and who will achieve justice, democracy, freedom, and rule of law. Thank you so much. Thank you. 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 Well, here. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say to Tawakkol, Karman, you mentioned at the beginning how you had Nelson Mandela on your wall, Desmond Tutu, Mahatma Gandhi. But I wonder how many of us are putting up a poster of Tawakkol Karam after this. I certainly will in my office, and I hope one day to be called a crazy woman. I now welcome to the stage Prof. Cheryl Hendricks and Ms. Rabia Abba Omar to lead our panel discussion. Ms. Rabia Abba Omar will be leading and moderating our panel discussion this evening. She is Frederik Slabbert's own Citizen Engagement Coordinator.
Congratulations.
Over to you, Rabia.
Sure. Thank you very much, Lisa Marie. Thank you very much, Tawakkol, for that
Thank you.
incredible honorary lecture.
Thank you.
you as well for drawing together the connections between how we have to safeguard our constitution and fight for it so that we can protect our rights.
Yes.
Prof. Cheryl Hendricks, I would like to welcome you onto stage. Professor Cheryl Hendricks is the Executive Director of the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, and she will be our local respondent for the evening. So as we reflect this year on 30 years of democracy in South Africa, I would love to hear from you. What are some of your thoughts on how young people are leading the way in terms of fighting for constitutionalism and citizen leadership? Thank you.
Thank you, Rabia. But first, let me say I'm very glad to be here this evening, and especially glad to listen to the lecture. I consider myself as a woman peace builder, and you just reminded me of why I do what I do. When I see women like you across the continent doing pretty much the same thing, standing up against oppression, when I know that my 30 years of work around women and peace building has not been for nothing, because when I listened to you, I was listening to a woman leader, a woman peace builder, somebody who was actually inspired, as you indicated, by our leaders, and has actually come back to remind us of our struggle for our constitution, for our democracy, that we critique so glibly and quickly in this country. And so I wanted to thank you for that. I'm going to get to you, don't worry. I've just come back from having the pre-national dialogue, a women's pre-national dialogue. We as women got together for the last 3 days, and we were examining some of the key priority challenges that we see that should be at a national dialogue. And many of the things that you've raised here around inequality, around insecurity, around gender-based violence, around landlessness, homelessness, etc., was coming to the fore in those discussions. But women not waiting to be invited to a national dialogue, we were jump-starting that national dialogue over the last 3 days. And so I wanted to get that in here. So as a peace builder, I will firstly say that after 30 years of democracy and all the challenges that we face as a country, we are not in a civil war. And many of the countries who became post-colonial, post-independent, descended into civil war. In this country, there is still peace to keep, and we should not forget that. But tensions are escalating, as was pointed out, so we do need to put in place conflict prevention and conflict management strategies. If we use the lens of transitional justice and reconciliation, then we have not sufficiently dealt with our historical injustices of marginalization, discrimination, inequity, and the healing that is required after so many centuries of intergenerational trauma. The violence of slavery, the violence of colonialism, the violence of apartheid, and the violence of our post-colonial states as well. The violence continues to be displayed in the forms of GBV, physical violence, emotional violence, and continued structural violence. In 1992, it was hard to imagine that this democracy would hold. And so it's also good to be here at the Slabbert lecture, because he was a key part of that ushering in of the democracy, that we could actually create a society that we had long been imagining and aspiring towards. Put ourselves back into the 1980s, those of us who can. We aspired towards a non-racial, non-sexist, sexist, inclusive democratic society, a South Africa that would see itself as an integral part of Africa and as a norm and agenda setter for multilateral institutions. We were speaking then already, for example, about UN reform. And 1994 happened despite all the bemoaning, and we're certainly not in the same place as we were in the 70s and 80s. We have constitutional rights, as you've indicated. We have gender equality. Legally, we're not discriminated against. Our society has transformed its different sectors. However, we have our challenges, right? But I wanted to point out, you say 30 years, we were youth. We were the youth then that were engaged in those struggles, right? Reimagining our context, taking action, taking change in pretty much the same way that Tawakkol has done. If it was not for the 1976 unrest and the protests of 1980s, things would not have changed. No stalemate would have been reached. There would be no Kwekweza, and we would not be here today. But there is a stark gap between what ought to be and our lived reality. We faltered, and I use the royal word we, because we can't just blame our government. We don't hold our government to account, as you've noted. We lost also sight of the bigger picture of transformation for a project that's more aligned to personal accrual. Materialism has become the order of the day. Government's good at developing legal frameworks, pretty shoddy at implementing them. And so we have these dysfunctional institutions, the inequality gap, racialized politics, factionalism. Our education system still seems to be producing what we called 30 years ago as gutter education. Reversals in gender equality still, we are seeing that now. We saw it in our last elections with a decrease in our representation, poverty and unemployment. The list is long. But all this speaks to is that the fault lines of our imagined nation has been laid bare to us.
and they now need to be addressed. It is time to reimagine, reset, recalibrate how we want to coexist, and the principles and values and ethics that will hold us together as we move forward. And you sitting there now, you are the youth. When we're speaking about all of these social ills, you are the most impacted by those social ills. It is your future that is at stake. It is therefore also your responsibility to lead on imagining and creating that new society. And leadership, as we so clearly heard here, is about a vision, but it's about mobilization and action also to realize it. And so the question you ask me is, how have young people demonstrated leadership over the last 30 years? Well, they firstly, 30 years ago, ushered it in, but we've also seen it here. The fees must fall movement, I think, was a very clear demonstration, trying to change higher education, looking at what we were being taught, whose knowledge was privileged, indeed, who were the bearers of knowledge. Younger voices are being heard in all of our forums. They're focusing our attention, I think, on diversity, on the myth of rainbowism, on the need to deal with issues of climate change and landlessness and GBV, for example. The youth that we saw rebelling on our continent, Kenya being the most recent of these. During COVID, we also saw our youth on the continent rebel against the restrictive measures and the abuse by law enforcement agencies. In Kenya, it was about a kleptocratic bourgeoisie, basically. Our youth rebel in different forms. So it's protests, it's violent extremism. I see violent extremism as a form of rebellion. Supporting coups, also. Crossing the Mediterranean or checking out of political life. Our youth are not there yet in South Africa. We are not there yet because we still have the avenues for protest. We can use our voice. We have the right to express ourselves, guaranteed to us in our constitution. And I see our youth using it in various social media spaces, etc. I've met girls as young as 12 and 16 who have formed their own NGOs in their communities. I recognized many of them for Peace Building Awards in 2022. I know you indicated constitutionalism, but our constitution gives us the right to organize, to critically reflect, and to protest that is unjust. And I think this is where youth need to organize, gain a consensus firstly on how we want to coexist, because youth here are factionalized too, how we want to coexist, and then chart a way forward for us. The youth are organizing, but I would say they need to do more. They need to equip themselves with knowledge, analyze, organize, and disrupt. But rebuild also, reimagine and rebuild, because it's very easy to criticize, much harder to build. And I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those insights, Prof. Hendricks, and thank you so much for the push for us as young people to reimagine, to rebuild, and to come together. I heard some nods and some yeses, or saw some nods and heard some yeses about like, yes, we need to come together and we are too factionalized. In the essence of time, I'm going to ask one question and then I would like to open the floor to the audience and we'll take 2 questions. We have roaming mics available. Please, to the audience members, when we do take your question, keep it brief so that we can give our 2 speakers as much time as possible. So my one question to you, I had to go through my list of questions that I wanted, but I think in reflecting on this year's theme, in reflecting on Dr. Frederik van Slabbert, on reflecting on the work that both of you have done in peace building and in peaceful dialogue, my question to you is, how do we get everyone into the room? What does that look like? What does that mean? And what should we do to do that? I'll let you both answer, and then we'll take the 2 questions from the audience.
Everyone cannot be at the peace table. There are many peace tables, multiple spaces. So, for example, now we are going through a peace process in this country. We're in our 2nd government of national unity. We are strategizing, the foundations are to have a national dialogue. National dialogue is a peace process. We've been there before. Most probably have a national convention as well. Anybody who does conflict management always knows we talk about track 1, track 2, track 3. We have to be working at multiple peace tables at the same time. Track 1, high level, usually track 2, NGOs, track 3, community-based organizations. Some straddle all 3. And so this idea that we all have to be in the room is not a correct one. But our voices need to be heard in that room. So how are we going to get what is happening in these different spaces, what I'm calling peace tables, how do we get that to reflect where the main dialogue would be? I think that is what we need to consider. And for that, we have to strategize. We have to organize and strategize if we want our voices to be heard there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Tawakkol?
I agree that not everyone could be in the peace table or peace negotiation table. And also I agree that organizing movements is very important to guarantee your voice to be represented in the peace table, in the decision making, etc., etc. But before talking in details on these 2 points, I want first to talk about what is the meaning of peace, or making peace, or the peacemakers. Are they the ones just who stay in the table leading a negotiation? No, I don't think so. Because I always said that peace doesn't only mean the end of war, but it also means the end of injustice and oppression. So the people who participate in this mechanism, I consider them as a peace builders. So anyone stand in a brave way in front of the dictator and he led movement or any kind of rising voices against dictatorship, he or she is a peacemaker. So all those people inside the prisons who are paying the price of calling for freedom, justice, democracy, they are peacemakers. So not only those who write or negotiate is, the only that one that we can say they are the peacemakers. No, this is number 1. Number 2, unfortunately, that most of the people who sit in the table of negotiation or building peace, we hope that this is sustainable building peace. Unfortunately, in most of the dialogue, they are not the real people who represent the real people in the land and in the struggle. And especially if we talk about women. Unfortunately. Because the only thing that those who play the role that they came to make the international rule, to bring together the people in one land. So the first thing that they are thinking about how we make to encourage women to be engaged in the peace process, because we want to implement the 1325 resolution for peace and women, peace and security resolution. But when they look for women, they don't look for the great women in the land. They go just to look for the woman who can play a decor role in this table. So the marginalizing women started in the peace building, started from that. And also marginalizing women in the local also places. And also if those parties make women represent, if they, and while they don't, also they didn't make a good, strong woman, you know. So for women who take this rule, she has to be aware. And she has to refuse any rule of beautifilize the image of, you know, any kind of system. Even the dictators, when they choose women to be in the governments, in the parliaments, they put them just to beautifilize their, so. So this is, we have.
Thank you very much. So if you want the change, lead it and be it. And thank you. Yeah, it's important to get everybody in the room heard and listening to one another. So because we have a packed evening still to follow, we do have an incredible performance lined up by the Stellenbosch University Choir. Yes, very exciting. We will take one question from the audience. Sorry, we've had to be strict with time. I see many hands up. Where are the roaming mics? We've got one over there, and we've got one over there. Okay, the first hand that I saw up was this person straight ahead of me in a... I can't even see your face, I'm so sorry. Salomzi.
I'm so honored. Molweni, igama lam ndinguSolomzi Mphambo, and I am a student and also the SRC member, outgoing rather. So my question is for, first of all, thank you so much, ladies, for the incredible panel discussion that you've held for us. So I think my question is for Ms. Karman. I hope that I am pronouncing your name right, and if I am not, I do apologize. I think my question is about our constitution that is supposedly the best constitution. So I do believe that our constitution has been implemented at the price of black women, and guarantee that our struggles as feminists and as women, our struggles are very different compared to, and I think the order is rather decided by the proximity of whiteness that you have, right? So I think my question is, how do we plan on bridging this gap to ensure that we disrupt the entire structure, because it has reinforced the black woman's struggle? And throughout history, black women had to choose between being black and being a woman. And I think that is something that is rather evident within what's happening in the Middle East, because you realize that Arab women have to choose by being Arab and also have to choose between being a woman. And I do believe that these struggles are intersectional. So as I said previously, that how do we plan on bridging this gap throughout women of color, given the fact that the struggles are different depending on the proximity of whiteness that you have? And despite being women of color, and I think we shouldn't ignore the struggles that are commencing rather throughout the colored perspective of what it means to be a black woman, and that is including of Arab women and Indian women, because I do think that in our social standings, black women, rather African descent women, do experience a different struggle of what it means to be a woman of color compared to someone who is of Arab descent, Indian descent, and other. So thank you very much for that question.
Okay, I understand in general. So I will say something, but I don't know if I will reply to your question or not. But I hope that what I will see that will add something to the audience. Look, well, my speech was concentrate about South Africa and the constitution in South Africa, and how you people of South Africa, how you should protect your constitution, and you should protect your democracy. And you should create a comprehensive democracy that will be a great model to every countries around the world. So this is my main theme. And I gave you examples for us from Yemen, that I have some good articles in my constitution that I was follow and lay on as my basement on my struggle. But there is another countries that doesn't have that constitution. That really suffer from all the lack of any legislation that can, help people or defend on people's rights or be a real social and legal contract between the citizen and the government and the authority. There is, which is absolute authoritarian regimes or absolute military coup, etc., etc. Or there is a constitution that totally that there is no way for people to implement. So you can, even with that period, because I know that there is a lot of people from many countries that also suffer from this kind, especially after the military coup after. So don't give up. Don't give up. The first right that you have is your right to speak, is your right to resist. And during all the human history, there was and there's still a conflict between freedom and tyranny. So you have to be the one who struggle for truth, for freedom, for democracy, for rule of law, for equality, regardless of the consequences that you live in. Be that one. Be that one. It is not a choice. It is not a choice. Make it as a way of life. Make it as a way of life. If you really care about your society. And never ever, again, never ever doubt on your cause and never ever doubt on your victory. Because the victory is not just to found in the authority or in the power. No. The victory is when you continue committed to the truth, to the justice, to the freedom, and to the rule of law. Your commitment, and don't lose hope. And I will end this with a very important example. Our colleague, Muhammad Yunus, Professor Muhammad Yunus. Professor Muhammad Yunus, he won Nobel Peace Prize because his work with the poor people. And he created great economy progress in his country with supporting poor people in his country. And he wasn't politician. He wasn't politician. And I encourage you to read about Professor Muhammad Yunus. He helped, he gave, some very small loans to poor women and to create their own project and with great mechanisms. It's a very, very important, it's a very clever idea. And since he won Nobel Peace Prize, and until 1 month, 2 months ago, he was struggling for his project inside his country and outside his country, and especially inside his country. The authoritarian regime was very curious, was very afraid from him as a person. He doesn't have political party. He's just a person who helps people. They make lies against him. They make disinformation against him. They make everything, against. And months ago, they tried to arrest him. And we Nobel laureates started, to make solidarity with him and want, to help him, to not face the prison and in front of the dictatorship. But all his work with people didn't finish. While people was convinced, some of them convinced because of the, narrative that talk against him. Then suddenly what happened in Bangladesh? Who knows? A great revolution led by peaceful students like you. A great revolution called for justice, for freedom, for rule of law. And pushed the dictator Hasina to escape from the country. The military coup wanted to hijack, as organized, wanted to hijack the youth revolution. What youth revolution students did? What? They stopped them and they said, we want Professor Muhammad Yunus to lead the government. Look, did he lose hope? Did he lose hope? So don't lose your hope. Don't lose your belief in yourself and on the people. One day, you will listen the people chant on the same chants that you carry. Raising your voice, your name, your photo in everywhere. This is exactly what happened with Muhammad Yunus. And this is what exactly happened with me in 2011. Finally, look, in Arab Spring countries, and this is I want to conclude, in Arab Spring countries, we are facing a very ugly counter-revolution led by the regional powers like Saudi Arabia, Emirates, and Iran. And those countries also, 3 countries also, supported by the super international powers. So those countries created chaos wars, civil wars, terrorism, everything in our countries. They wanted to make a revenge from us, and they want people to regret that we made revolution against the dictator. And they say, well, no, okay, the period of the big dictator is more stable than now. That was the main mission. They want, and they destroyed, not they want, they destroyed our countries as a revenge from our call for freedom and justice. But did we give up? No. Will we give up? No. Will we lose this battle? No. Because we know the history. Every great revolution, every great change followed by counter-revolution, but the only winner in the end is the people who fight for freedom, justice, and democracy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to our audience. Thank you to both of our panelists,
Thank you.
Tawakkol and Cheryl. Thank you for your insights that you've shared with us this evening. I'd like to ask Dr. Heidi October to come up, and she'll say a few words.
Amazing way to end Women's Month in South Africa. As a token of our appreciation, we would now like to invite you to join our Frederik van Zyl Slabbert Global Leadership Network, and we would like to present you with a small token of appreciation. So you are becoming an honorary member of our institute.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, South Africa.
Nice. Okay. We can stand here. We can stand.
But wait.
Thank you, Heidi. This is beautiful.
With the Constitution.
There we go.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wish you luck.
Pen is there.
Thank you. See you again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our participants and also to my colleague Rabia Abu Umar. Stellenbosch University prides itself in purposeful partnerships as a way to realize our Vision 2040. And this evening is exactly an example of that. It was a collaboration between the Frederik Slabbert Institute and in particularly the Stellenbosch University Japan Center. I would now like to welcome the director of the Stellenbosch University Japan Center, Professor, I'm trying to find her, Scarlett Cornelissen. Thank you.
Good evening, colleagues and friends, and especially to Dr. Heidi October, who invited Stellenbosch University Japan Center to partner with the Frederik Slabbert Institute to co-host the event this evening. It's been an absolute honor for us as Stellenbosch University Japan Center to be part of this event, as well as for the proceedings that will follow. Now, it's difficult to transition after the really, really inspiring and uplifting lecture that Ms. Tawakkol Karman presented. And I am a political scientist by training, and I was both intellectually as well as personally inspired. And that's for two reasons. The first is that in her lecture, she really patently reminded us of the times that we are living in. It's a time of, and a context of polarization, of nationalistic agendas, of conflict, of instability, and unfortunately also of brutality and of precarity. But secondly, her lecture at the same time carried an important message. It was a message of hope and of aspiration for a better world. But it's incumbent on all of us to take up that responsibility to work towards a better world. And I think the key message that I got out of her lecture this evening is that there's nothing organic or natural or automatic of democracy. It doesn't just happen, it doesn't just fall out of the sky. It's something that has to be worked for and that has to be worked at. So it's a constant work in progress. But I think it's also incumbent on all of us, on all generations, to take up that responsibility and to work towards the fair and safe world that we want and the fair and safe world that we think that we deserve. And, you know, as older generations, we sometimes tend to defer too quickly to the youth. I think that it is an intergenerational and multi-generational project. So social justice is a fundamental global value to seek and realize in various ways and through a constant endeavor. Today, so that the Stellenbosch University Japan Center held the first day of the South Africa-Japan University Forum, where we gathered as a community of scholars, as intellectuals, as scientists, and we talked about our profession in the very silo context that we tend to do as scholars. But I'm happy to say that one thing that stood central, the binding theme for all of us, is that we gave serious thought to the question of how do what we do as academics, as researchers, as scientists help bring about a better world, and what guideposts do we give to the youth, to the next generation of not only researchers but the next generation of leaders and the next generation of citizens. So for me, this evening is a very fitting end to what was an extended discussion today, a call to action, but also in the context of this evening's lecture, a celebration of the milestones of our democracy in South Africa. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the proceedings. We are being treated to a performance by the world-famous Stellenbosch University Choir, something that all of us who are Matis are very, very proud of. And again, thank you. Thank you for being here.
We are almost there, honored guests. To lead us in a word of thanks, I would like to welcome to the stage the Stellenbosch University Senior Director within the Division of Student Affairs, Dr. Troyce Maketa.
Good evening again. To everyone who's in the room and online, we are very excited to be here. This has been a very emotional evening, very inspirational. And I think all of us received the message that the struggle does not end until democracy is achieved, until human rights are achieved. To everyone in the room, and I would want to first say thank you to Prof. Wim de Villiers, Director and Vice Chancellor of the University, and also to Catherine de Villiers for being here. We are really honored. I want to thank rectorate members who are here, Prof. Sibusiso Moyo, Prof. Hester Klopper, Prof. Derish. I saw Dr. Ronel Retief, many leaders who are here, deans and chief directors, all the leaders across the structures of the university and especially governance structures. I want to thank Tawakkol, Karman. We really appreciate that you made time to be here, to travel here and to be with us. We want to thank you for the courage. It is not an easy journey. The risks are many, but you remain brave. And I think everyone, especially the youth, because the youth have the energy to carry the baton and take us several steps forward. I want to thank you.
To go implement our constitution, that needs to wait a little bit because you need to come back into this room, please. So we're all going to get up, stretch our legs, and there's going to be a 5-minute bell to let us know that we need to be back. Please be seated, and then let's enjoy the choir together.